G.K. Chesterton, a literary critic and intellectual writer, wrote everything from fictional novels to nonfiction essays and even poems. He wrote on a wide range of topics, including government and other writers, and involved himself in political and orthodoxy conversations and debates. A reader unfamiliar with the artist's work might be surprised that alongside his evident intelligence, he treasured and took advantage of humor in his writing. He applied humor when conveying ideas in every type of topic, both fictional and academic. He used humor when asserting his strong opinions on sensitive topics because it keeps the opponent's personal convictions in mind without attacking the person. Humor is an effective device for drawing in and engaging readers. Humor makes new ideas likable, and readers agree with what they like. Determining how best to draw in readers is difficult, especially in academic papers, but by delighting them, the writer can keep them reading. Chesterton's humor is clever and thought-provoking, causing readers to ask new questions and consider fresh ideas. G.K. Chesterton uses humor in various forms such as paradox, antithesis, and intellectual wit to draw in his audience. By looking at the great authors before us, we are able to determine which of their advice can be adapted to our own writing. Chesterton was fond of using paradox. According to Dale Alquist, quote, "It is this tool of comfort, the paradox, that Chesterton makes the greatest use of in all his writing. He is the prince of paradox. What exactly is this thing, paradox? It is the notion of the proposition that seems to contradict itself, two statements that are both true but absolutely contradict each other." Paradox can be found in almost any of Chesterton's writing. Sometimes it can go unnoticed, like "the very sky seemed small," or "he told the truth about the falsehood he had to tell." In his analysis of Charles Dickens, he said, "All men are tragic, all men are comic. Every man is important if he loses his life, and every man is funny if he loses his hat." His purpose for using paradox is as simple as a desire for truth. According to Alquist, Chesterton uses paradox for a purpose: not to be cute, not to be clever, not to be confusing, and not to be merely contradictory. He uses paradox to point to the truth. Truth is paradoxical in both senses of the word. It is a surprise, and it is set around a contradiction. Paradox by itself is not necessarily laugh-out-loud humor, but it is clever and thought-provoking. It gives the reader a sense of accomplishment, a pat on the back for catching it and for solving its puzzle. Another device Chesterton uses to convey his cleverness is one called antithesis. While a paradox contradicts itself, an antithesis opposes a concept outside of itself. One example of this device comes from The Man Who Was Thursday. "And it is always the humble man who talks too much, the proud man who watches himself too closely." Antithesis can trigger ridiculous images at the hands of the exaggeration of the imagination. Chesterton uses this element of style to his advantage, delighting the readers. The whole thing is brilliantly comical. It also, however, begs the question, how can I write like that? But again, like paradox, it is simply a matter of doing it. Antithesis makes up most catchphrases and clever sayings. Write what sounds amusing to you as the writer. It may take some practice, but it can be applied in any form of writing, even academic papers. Start with a thought and think of its contradiction. One major overarching aspect of Chesterton's writing is his clever wit. Chesterton was incredibly witty, and many times throughout his writing you can almost see him trying to hide a smile. According to his essay, titled Humour, it is a grave error to underrate wit as something trivial. For certain purposes of satire, it can truly be the sword of the spirit, and the satirist bears not the sword in vain, but it is essential to wit that he should bear the sword with ease, that for the wit, the weapon should be light if the blow be heavy, that there should be no question of his being encumbered with his instrument or laying open his guard. Chesterton had many things to say. Some things he said right out, some he used symbolism in stories which reveal aspects of his own character and life. Chesterton made observations about things around him and used his wit to write about them. In conclusion, humor can spice up the dry language of academic writing. It is important that humor is not forced. As Chesterton found humor in the world around him, good authors should write what they find funny. Using such literary devices as paradox and antithesis, slipping in little phrases to catch your reader off guard will communicate academic topics in a way that captivates your readers.